Good morning, afternoon, whenever you watch this. CO 300, day 3. This may be the most important class of your entire life. Might be a little hyperbolic, a little bit of an exaggeration, but maybe not if we think today's class is really about reading notes. I'll try to get some clever titles here. Two goals is reading notes, who needs them? And discussion forums, what good are they? But really what's interesting for us today is thinking about what good readers do and how that relates to good note taking. I have some examples of notes we're going to look at and give you some feedback on kind of what I'm hoping you do in your reading notes and why you're doing them. But why I said that this might be the most important lesson or most important class so far this semester, maybe even ever, is if we expand this idea of reading to not just be texts. So I'm not just like reading books, or we could also say that you could read photos or comics or those kinds of things. But kind of thinking about reading the entire world or reading the situation or reading other people. And that might be an interesting place to start, is to think about other ways we use the word or the verb reading. I already gave you, we could say that we read books, and we could say that we read situations, or we could also say that we read other people. Let me think of any other ways we use the verb read, other kinds of reading that we do. If that comes up, I'd be interested in that. What we're gonna do is I have kind of a list of things that I think good readers do, but it's different for different people. I still think one of the things that we're looking at here that's interesting is how to train the attention. So we are looking at ways of using our cognitive abilities at a higher level, even at 8 a.m. in the morning. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is think about these two questions, and in breakout rooms, you have kind of two tasks. One is to just list the things that good readers do. And then two, kind of rank what's most important on that list. And you have about 5 minutes to do that. So I hope, does that prompt make sense? It's a pretty basic one. I'm happy with this lesson plan because it's focused on reading, and I think this concept is actually really rich and expansive when we look into it. So we're going to go into 3 different rooms, 4 or 5 per room, and I will see you back here in about 5 minutes. So just to get us kind of going, I think about this in a little bit bigger and more exciting and I think realistic frame. That we not only read books and articles and feeds or other kinds of texts, but we also do read people. We read situations. We read defenses if we're playing basketball, and we read the world. One of my favorite professors at CSU, his name's Paul Trembath. He's in the English department. His big claim is that nobody knows how to read the world, that we're all basically illiterate, which is very interesting if you think about it. Okay, so with that as kind of an interesting background, what do good readers do? What did we get? Can we just hear from the groups, from each group on what they thought was the most important thing?
We said like good readers are able to like retain information after like a quick read, like being able to like skim and then still get all the information.
Awesome. I would want to question the retain part. But yes, I think in some situations, yes. In other situations, I don't know that it's important to retain information, especially if you have notes and you can look it up right away.
Yeah, true.
This is kind of like the old model of education, to fill students with ideas and information that they can then recall later, which is increasingly obsolete thanks to Google. But anyway, I agree. Good. I really like the idea that you said skim quickly and still get what's significant. That seems right on what we're working for. Good. Other ones?
We talked about something good readers do that builds off of that a little bit, which was to be able to make connections and identify claims pretty quickly. And we talked about how good readers often do that by rereading.
Yes.
And also taking notes.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Those are excellent contributions. And the third group? I should always say that we need to nominate someone that's going to be ready to share what the group has to say.
Oh, we were talking about how readers, like good readers, read often. It's like all other skills, like it's something you have to practice and it's a skill you have to develop.
Awesome. Anything else that made your list that's not on this so far?
We also just talked about making time for reading. Goes along with reading often, but actually carving out time to read and being intentional about that.
Yeah, and we said like being able to read something even if it's like you're not interested in it.
I love that.
And still being able to read at the same level.
You mean like rhetorical readings for advanced writers?
Possibly.
Yeah. And still be engaged. It's amazing. Anything else? Okay. And then we're in a position, we've already gotten some of these, but I'm getting more concrete into how do good readers do what they do. Under a couple of these bullets, I have some tips and tricks that I think I can share, but I'm wondering before I do if you all have any, if you would fill in these notes any which way. Under any of these, can I add any concrete how we do those things? Look at skimming quickly. There's courses online on speed reading that are really interesting. there's someone that claim that can read books and outrageously quickly and claims that with his method you can read books very, very, very quickly, which changes the way you process information. So you can take speed reading classes online. There's YouTube videos on speed reading. I never really got into it when I tried to do it because it kind of took the joy out of reading. It wasn't fun for me to try to read like that. It just became more like I felt like a machine, so it didn't really work for me. But that is an option, and that's free if you want to get better at speed reading, especially when you're reading things that you're not going to enjoy reading anyway. But in terms of skimming, one of the concrete tips and tricks that you can use, or tip, is to only read the topic sentences. Has anybody tried to do this, where you just read the topic sentence, topic sentence, topic sentence, topic sentence? If you have not tried that, I encourage you to try that.
Yeah.
It's surprising.
I try that very often.
Yes. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the author, really. Right?
Like only the topic and the
Yes.
first and the last sentence.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the most important information in a lot of articles?
Like the first and the last paragraph.
Yeah. There's also another technique here. So I had a student, I don't know, a few semesters ago, being like, yeah, this is a pretty valuable course, but that trick to just read the topic sentences, oh my God, it saved me so much time. That was the best thing about this course. And I'm like, cool. Yeah. But yeah, I think that is significant. We've heard of multiple draft reading. I'm sorry, multiple draft. Like if you're writing something, you take multiple drafts. Actually, this goes under a different heading. Rereading and taking notes. Love this. One of my instructors when I was a college student really advocated multiple draft reading. And he tried to get people to read things 3 or 4 passes. And I remember in the room, all the students kind of groaned, like, I don't even want to read it once. And they're asking me to read it 3 times. And he was saying, though, that this is a way to read more quickly. And on the first pass, you are only reading the biggest picture information. This means your headings, bold stuff, and some topic sentences that seem important. And then the second reading, as you go through, you're also, as you go through on that first time, marking things that seem significant. You go to what seems important. You kind of slow down and read those more carefully. And then third, you revisit anything that you skipped to make sure that it's not important, or you just kind of go through it again. So instead of just reading, and that's another thing that good readers do, I think, is that they are able to skip around. So you're not only skimming, you're skipping and skimming. You're able to kind of go to a new heading and see what's there and do that a lot. Cool. Another point, so I would try to do this if you haven't, especially if the text is really difficult. This is in the context of philosophy texts, or philosophers are terrible writers a lot of the time, so it's really hard to read their writing. If you haven't tried, I want to recommend this book, also Why We Sleep. One of the coolest books I read last year. It's on the science of sleep, which surprisingly we know very little about and is incredibly fascinating. But one of the things he said, I like to read after dark to avoid screen time. When you look at a screen after dark, you are you're making it harder for your body to sleep, basically. Also, if you have caffeine after noon, you're making it harder for your body to sleep. Highly recommend this book. It's freaking amazing. Okay. Okay, being able to read something if you're interested and still not be engaged, that's a great heading. How do we do this? Does anybody feel like they're good at that? You can teach us a thing or two? I think if you make it a game to find the main points as quickly as possible, or to draw the main points, i.e. to visualize them in some kind of a way. So you have like, for Edmundson, you might think that like getting a real education could be like the main thing in the middle, because you feel like you found that as his main idea, that's going to be difficult in some way. And then you're starting to think about how these other pieces connect. So it might be like a tree where there's this main idea and then these other ideas coming up from it, or the main ideas at the top and these other ideas are below it, if you're thinking that way. But you're trying to make it, so make it artistic in some kind of a way. You basically need to take ownership over the process. If I tell you to do something, we have no motivation to do it. It becomes something we have to do. If you make it something that you get to do, this is funny, another one of my favorite things. If you change your verb, you change your life. Instead of saying you don't have to, actually, you get to. If you want proof of that, I think it's probably about 1 billion, I don't even know how many people who are risking death to get to this country to enroll in an educational system that we're participating in. So you don't have to. You get to. It's a privilege to be here, and it's a privilege to read shit you don't want to read, really. If you are able to take ownership over the process, try to make it creative. I think other things go into that as well. Like if you're not feeling well, if you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, if your boyfriend, girlfriend / is challenging, it's going to make it more challenging to read. Okay, I feel like that was a little unhelpful. Any other points before we move on? I've really got one. One of the main things here is that this is really, we're looking to get the main points as quickly as possible. And this came up again, identify claims quickly. We're trying to move quickly. And this is to get what's significant or important. And this is, I think, the main thing that we're working on here. And I think this is the parallel between reading books and reading the world or reading people. When we read other people, do you think sometimes we pay attention to the wrong things about those people? i.e., we're reading information about the people that really aren't important at all. And we maybe miss other information that's super important. Like we've heard, like, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Like we might actually judge someone by how they look. This is especially true when you're considering spending your life with someone. You want to, like Nietzsche famously said, if you're looking for a life partner, you should find someone you can have good conversations with, because that's the only thing in your relationship that will get better over time, which I think is hilarious. And completely backwards to our culture, right? Like we want someone with a nice face. Or a body, even worse. Okay, or maybe not, I don't know. The other really big thing that we didn't get is that good readers ask questions. It's very difficult to read someone with the information they give you, and asking a good pointed question, like why are you studying what you're studying, not just what your major is, can really give you a lot of intel or insight into someone or into a text. And I make one last point that I think is really interesting. One of my instructors said that if you ask questions of a text, that the text will answer you. Has anybody had this experience where you've had a conversation with the text, where the text actually kind of comes alive and shows you different things because of the way that you're reading it? Maybe this is just like happens to only children like me, whose only real friends as they're growing up are books. But I swear to you, this is true, or it can be true. It has been true for me. When you ask a question of a book, like I open it up and go, okay, Daniel Pink's Drive, what's important here? And I'm like actually asking that, it seems like the book talks back to you.
I didn't, in the article we read last week, didn't he kind of talk about how you should ask questions about what you're learning? And
that is basically, that is the connection. That's the springboard to the next part. So thank you. You're not only asking, it's like basically you're not being passive of the information that's coming to you. You're asking questions all the time of whether or not this is legit or not. So not only like what's important and what the person is saying, but what does this mean? What does this mean to me? Yeah, I get what the state of Colorado wants me to get from a upper division writing course. But what does that mean to me? Is the state of Colorado right? Is this what we should be teaching people? Or is this whole system bullshit? That's the kind of questioning skills. Or who is this guy? Where is he coming from? Should I trust him? Then in order to answer those questions, you're needing to like bring your own experience to bear on the situation. You're basically needing to be involved in the situation. And then now all of a sudden you're actually, I feel like, getting an education because you're engaging in the material in a way that maybe other people are not. I really believe that the quality of your the quality of your education depends on the quality of your questions. In other words, the better questions that you ask, the better education you're going to get. The better questions that you ask, the more you're going to know about the people that you're around, and ultimately the more you're going to know about yourself, which is super valuable, according to Edmundson. Okay. I want to, if you're going to get they've shown in habits, in like habit cultivation and habit changing, like if reading is a habit and you need to do more of it to get better at it, that's super smart. You need to kind of set more concrete goals. So instead of saying like, I'm going to read more, you need to say or note in your journal, I'm going to read more from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Or I'm going to read more from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. before I take a nap. So you might want to take a little bit of time to set a more concrete goal, which includes like a specific time frame that you plan on doing it. Maybe even set like a reminder in your calendar, like reading time. I know it's kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to read during school, or at least read what you want to read. That's another, if you're not enjoying what you're reading, read something else. Doesn't really apply in school. But
I've also heard like a lot of what helps you start reading more is like making your goals so simple you couldn't not do them.
Yes. Yep. Okay, let's talk about how this connects to reading notes. I've got 3 examples of reading notes I want to look at. And I'm sorry, this is a little hard to see, but this first one, and they all are similar in their strengths and weaknesses. This first one, we have initial thoughts, and we have some underlining here. We have a little, looks like one different color of some green money, job prospects. It seems like the underlining is actually really deliberate and nice. So seems really helpful to me. There's some spatial orientation here where there's some indents. We've got quotes with boxes around the quotes. I really like the quotes that this person chose. You are, Foucault might say, the intersection of many evaluative and potentially determining discourses. Super rich quote about the way that language and discourse can determine who we are and how we see ourselves. So I can definitely tell by the quotes that by the way the quotes they chose, and by how succinct and the kind of detail that are in the notes, that this person read the article carefully and basically spent time with this piece. There's also some nice spatial orientation, discussion questions, and a nice reflection with a takeaway here. Engage in soul nourishment, find knowledge, wisdom, and interest in the mundane through inquiry and engagement. He highlights the tragedy that higher education makes the deeper in journey difficult to embark upon. His writing was extremely enjoyable to read, very engaging. He was persuasive without stating his opinion. This is really good in terms of encapsulating the main ideas of the reading. Would you agree that this is like a pretty nice, it's like pretty sophisticated, really pretty excellent notes? What I think this person can improve is the sense of this initial thought section. When I'm going back to look at these notes, I'm having a hard time seeing what's important and what's not here. Like this to my eyes just looks like a giant block of text. Even though there is some spatial organization, it's difficult for me to tell what's important or not in the notes. Even in the reflection, it's difficult for me to tell what's important or not, even though what I'm really looking for is the main point that they make. And so what I told this person in their feedback is that this is a good, like definitely like 9 out of 10 status on the notes. Got the main point of the articles, and to really make it excellent, I could see a little bit more time and care identifying the argument outline or structure. So like looking at how these pieces go together, or going back over the notes and marking it with stars or arrows or double underlines is a great way that I use for the main important points. Underlining important points, double underlining the big important points, so that I can re-look at these notes if I wanted to and be able to be like, boom, boom, boom. Oh, right, I remember what Edmundson said. Peace, I'm out. So it's like when you're reading and getting the most important information really quickly, you're doing that for yourself in your notes. Here's another example of that same thing. This one is, it's nice. We've got the date, we've got the title, I like this one because it's more conversational and stream of consciousness. So again, this one seems like there's these notes in here about how the person is connecting to the reading. Love that. I told this person that I really think that this is, there's some really great points of conversation in these notes that I really think are really valuable. I don't care about misspellings. I don't care about any of that. What I do care about this is how accessible they are after the fact. I don't know what the main points are, and it's difficult for me to see what's going on in these notes. So this is a little more in the 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10 range, where it's pretty much there. And however, I'm not seeing, and I am seeing some quotes, but it just doesn't, I'm basically looking for that evidence of like, there's a main point here. Here's the main point, what it is. And there's a lot of good stuff in this, but it's also not spatially organized as well as it could be. So I told them that they should organize their notes with like big, maybe big headings or big all caps ideas to begin separating some of this out and use a little bit more of the white space on the page. As they say in the recording studio, tape is cheap, and we can say paper is cheap. Like I would just use more space. This is another example where there is some more spatial orientation. With this one though, I wanted to highlight that this, I'm pretty sure this is nearly a quote from Edmundson. And he does say education, the biggest enemy is education itself. So I would, if there is any, I would make sure that you articulate when an idea is yours and when an idea is theirs. So because these first two just seem like super big paraphrases, I would cite them basically. Yes, so what is my feedback on these? Ideally, your notes as well are a place that you can identify and practice what's most important and what's not, so that you can go back to your notes and use them. So the quality of notes are in their functionality for you after the fact, and also in your functionality for yourself as you go. So this one is really good engagement with the text, but not as good organizing thoughts around the text. And that lack of organization in the thinking shows up in the lack of organization in the notes. That makes sense? Questions, comments, feedback about that? Okay.
Hi. Just
Please.
to ask, will you upload it on Canvas, right?
Yes, but you don't need, you're going to turn in all your notes in October. So you're kind of keeping track of your own notes and hopefully getting better as you go. And then you're going to upload them to Canvas in October.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about the discussion forum if you have questions on that. And I am looking for, again, ideally when we're looking at writing, let's take a look at this. This is a good way to apply what we are working on. Oh, and that's not even there. Bummer. In this initial post criteria, I could ask, what's the most important words in that description?
Like the three-sided examples and references. Is that important?
Yep, I think so. And it's buried. There's another string of words that I think are most important here. Given that we care about points assessed, content, textual support, organization, and writing quality. I'm also interested in this word substantially meets. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does content mean? I get what textual support is. That just means using the text. I also am not quite sure about what writing quality means. So I might want to ask the instructor on that, and hopefully we learn more about that over the course of the semester since this is a writing class. But I'm guessing that content means this. Concepts and ideas. So this is really the way that I'm noticing. The main thing I'm noticing in the forum so far is that some, at least in the prompt, that it seems more like a stream of consciousness rather than a revised, organized post about the main ideas and how they got there. This isn't, I mean, some people are doing really well on that already. Does that make sense? I meant to leave more time for this part, and we still didn't even get to discuss the main questions that Edmundson asked, although we did in a roundabout way by talking about making reading your own and how that translates to your experience in the classroom. but I'm noticing we're out of time. So I'm going to give us some feedback on our forums, and we're going to go over, just like we went over the reading notes a little bit today, we'll go over the discussion forums next time and talk about what I'm looking for revision. I updated this, and that's why I'm not sure it's not showing up. So
the revisions are due like on Monday at midnight?
Correct.
So we'll have another class before they're due?
Correct.
Because I was just wondering, like, in our revision, do you want us to like highlight the things we changed?
You're just going to, yes, it says you're just going to tell me, basically. Tell me what you changed and why. You don't need to go overboard with that, as it's not. I just want you to spend a little bit more time with your writing and either add things where you need to add things or take out things that you can take out.
Okay.
And you're just telling me that.
Oh, so you don't have to like repost?
No, you do. So you basically repost your original post and then say what it is that you changed. I'm not going to be able to like go through and chart them. I'm basically going to trust you on what you say you did.
Okay.
Great question. We will go over that on Monday. We are going to move, I think we can move to 2 times a week once we establish kind of the main goals of the course, and you're able to kind of move with that on your own.
All right. Thank you.
But we will be meeting Monday and Wednesday of next week at least, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Get some sleep. Have some fun.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hope you enjoy it.